Why does spiritual growth feel so darn uncomfortable? Good morning, my friends. It's I, John, here in my living room on a slightly rainy day. The snow is melting very quickly outside, and I am enjoying a fabulous mug of John's Joe coffee. I hope this morning finds you well and living a loving life. I wanted to talk about why spiritual growth feels so uncomfortable. The concept of growth is the key factor here. You know, when we have a set of rituals or dogmas or ideologies, what happens is we are limited by the potential of that idea. We can only grow as far as that belief will allow us to grow. Growing spiritually is to broaden past those parameters, to come out past that idea of that one pathway, to realize that the pathway is a forest, and the forest has many options, and within that forest is the beauty of everything. When you look at the idea of growing spiritually being uncomfortable, every time we step out on something that's uncertain, we have an uncomfortable experience. Why is that? Because we don't know what's going to happen, so oftentimes our natural default is to think that something fearful might happen. That's the survival mechanism within all of us. We look at the outer world as a potential threat, and what could go wrong? What could go wrong? What's so interesting about that concept is that when you look at fear and what fear actually is, broken down to its simplest form, fear is negatively focused uncertainty. You know, we're uncertain about what's going to happen, so we project a negative outcome that might happen to protect ourselves. It's not wrong to do that. It's the nature of the primal animal, is to look for threats and protect ourselves. What's so interesting is when you release that concept of the uncertain being negative, and you shift yourself into creating a beautiful future, stepping on a pathway and watching that path form behind you, and the path is beautiful behind you because you've created stepping on a beautiful path, and you've moved into this expression of this beautiful outcome, understanding that you are the creator of that experience. But spiritual growth involves breaking out of those ideologies that are so entrapped in those fears and anxieties and stresses, those primal reactions. And when you look at it from the perspective of growth being uncomfortable, it's really uncomfortable only because of the fact that we have fears, anxieties, and stresses, and we have to break out of the negativity. Now, a lot of people have a physical experience with breaking into a greater spiritual truth. And one of the reasons they have that spiritual truth is because fear is embodied. You know, we suck air into our lungs. We hold air in our lungs out of fear. A lot of ideologies leave you in fear of burning in hell, the fear of, not pleasing your elders, the fears. Now, what happens is we don't know necessarily consciously that we're in fear. It's a subconscious thing. It's there. But in that subconscious nature, our body's holding air as a reserve to run fast if we have to. And in that regard, not knowing we're doing it, our muscles have to hold that air in. So now we have this tension that is always within our bodies. And if that tension doesn't get released in some form, eventually the muscles suffer. You start to have arthritic symptoms. You start to have, symptoms of something like fibromyalgia or something of that nature. Your body starts to suffer because of what you're holding in. The Gnostic Gospel of Mary says that fear is the root cause of ailment. And what's so interesting about that statement is that when you look at it from the perspective of my body is in this tension because of my belief system, and my belief system is causing this tension, when you break free of that tension, it's uncomfortable, not because that tension was good. It's because we've become comfortable in that tension. It's like a velvet cage. We know we're safe in the cage, and we wrap a bunch of velvet around it so we're comfortable in that cage. But at any moment, you can open the door and fly. It's a matter of you understanding that you have the ability to, in any moment, break free of that. But the breaking free of that has fear, that idea of jumping out into the unknown. Spiritual growth is just like that. You've got to release the ideas and the tensions of old ideologies, of old patterns, of old choices, and you've got to step out into something more broad, something more unknown, and that unknown elicits a fear. But that discomfort is not bad. It is the tribute to the fact that you've done something brave. You've done something to surpass these limitations, to grow into something bigger, to reach out into a world and expect to see a love in return, to create from that space. Now, people say, yeah, but I did step out. It didn't happen that way. And it's so interesting. I did step out and it didn't happen that way. I will almost be willing to bet they said they tried it. Well, if you're trying it, you're not committing. You're not actually doing. Do or do not, there is no try. That's my buddy Yoda, right? My good friend Dan Thurman is a motivational speaker. My good friend Dan is an amazing motivational speaker. Wrote a book called Off Balance on Purpose. And he talks about the idea that when you're standing on top of a 6-foot unicycle, if you want to go forward, you have to lean forward into a fall and then pedal your feet to keep in that motion. But you're in that forward momentum, you are always slightly off balance. You're just catching up with the balance that you've created, the off balance you've created. If I didn't pedal, if I didn't keep the motion going forward, I could crash. When someone says it didn't work, it's because they didn't keep the momentum going forward. They fell and they had a hard problem. It's not because it's out of their control. It's because they chose to let go of control. They chose to stop pedaling. They chose to stop showing the future as something they're creating and decided to just give up.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Coffee Time with John. This channel runs off coffee, so get your coffee and tea at johnsjoe.com.
I tell stories all the time of things I've created in my life, and usually the way it comes is not in the way I would ever expect it to come. And a lot of times it seems like it's completely contrary to my outcome. But because I have complete faith and I keep pedaling, I end up realizing the outcome faster because I don't doubt. The Bible says, when you pray, believe you shall receive and you shall. You know what the Bible doesn't say? It doesn't say, when you pray, believe you shall receive if you can figure out how. It's a matter of being in the present moment declaration of choice. And that's uncomfortable because no one wants the responsibility of that. No one wants to they want to have someone feed it to them. Grab them by the hand and walk them down a path. Spirituality will always be a personal journey. It'll always be something within yourself. And, the identity, the original identity of self, ego, that's all that means. It does not mean narcissist like a lot of people think. Ego means that you are aware of yourself. It's the awareness of your I. And within that awareness of I, we have this survival mechanism that says I have to protect the I. I have to protect the I am of me. And the ego does this in such a way that, we often, because of our awareness of I, we think certain things are safe, or at least we think we understand how to manage certain things within the I and keeping the I safe. But it's until the I decides to step out and see a bigger world and get off balance and go out into an experience that's much bigger than themselves, that they'll never have the ability to experience a broader awareness of their own spirituality, their own connection with God. And it's a matter of putting yourself off balance on purpose, like my friend Dan says. Oftentimes when we're putting ourselves off balance, we feel like we're betraying our belief systems. We feel like we're betraying our religion. Well, think about betrayal. Betrayal itself is a representation of an unloving thing. We are literally betraying. We are being unloving to our religion, to our ideologies. You can't betray a religion. You can't betray a belief system. The belief system is not a thinking being. It's just a set of rules, doctrines, and dogmas. You can't betray them. The reality of it is that betrayal idea is an ideology of the religion telling you that the doctrines themselves are God. And in that betrayal concept, you have the ability to say, okay, if I don't believe that my friend Dave and his husband Bob are allowed to express their love in that way, then I have to think to myself, why is love wrong? Why is love wrong over there? Right? You've got to break free of this ideology that's a sin, that they've done something terrible by loving one another. That idea that those two people shouldn't be together because they're of a different race. That's just as detrimental. That's just racism, right? This is Christian or religious bigotry, right? It really is not about love, because God is love and perfect love drives out fear. Why is it so fearful to see two men loving one another? Why are you in the ability to judge them for who they are? It comes down to this idea that you've got to get off balance on purpose. You've got to step on to this pathway of understanding that if that is love and God is love, it can't be wrong. But that's uncomfortable because the doctrine says they're not allowed to be together because they're two men. The interesting thing about that one in particular, a little tangent here, every animal group in nature has homosexuals. And usually it happens when there's an out of balance between men and women. And what happens is, over whatever way it goes, a certain number, a certain percentage of every animal population in the world are homosexual. They start balancing their population again by having this expression with the same sex. It's a part of nature. It's who we are. And if you can't accept and love that, it's not because of their love being wrong. It's because you've put yourself in a parameter that you're afraid of getting uncomfortable getting out of. You've got to break free of that ideology that I have to judge everyone because they don't believe the same as I do. You have to break free of that. You have to be uncomfortable in putting yourself out there into larger spiritual growth, understanding that the simplicity of love is not held down or bottled by a doctrine or a dogma. And the only way you break free of that is to start to let things go and be uncomfortable. You have to break things down before you can break through. It's part of that process of letting go of things. Enlightenment means I'm putting everything down and getting lighter. It's not a light show. It's not an angel coming down from heaven. It's not, an imaginary experience of a bright light and a nirvana popping in. It's about bringing that nirvana, bringing that love, bringing that compassion, bringing the kingdom of heaven to earth. It's about being in the now and living that experience. But the only way you do that is to be uncomfortable, to get out of the limitations that you've created or that you've chosen. Lean into your discomfort rather than avoiding it. Take that moment to see your discomfort as a teacher itself, not an enemy. You're learning about who you are. You're learning about your unconditional nature of your love. You're learning about this idea that this discomfort is going to take you to something greater and a bigger awareness of who you really are. And you're going to find that the more spiritual growth you have, the less discomfort you have. The discomfort itself comes from old ideas. Spirituality is free, it's loose, it's loving, it's caring, it doesn't have that discomfort. The discomfort is breaking free from the limitations of past concepts, past ideas, past chosen beliefs. The discomfort is not the spirituality. The discomfort is what you're leaving behind. So, my friends, on your spiritual journey, realize there's going to be moments that you're going to be uncertain. There's going to be moments that you feel uncomfortable. There's going to be moments where you really don't feel like you have the ability to uh, to go forward. Go forward anyway. Try it. Put yourself out there. The beautiful world will be beautiful right back to you again if you're putting that out there. Spiritual growth is about expansiveness, not limitation. And it's the limitation that's uncomfortable. Break free. Go out there and find that beautiful love and joy. And don't accept the discomfort of others as a judgment upon yourself. Because the discomfort of others is theirs, not yours. Live into your love, be your love, and love will surround your world. And that's my thought on this. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.